I believe it was a Friday. I walked into my classroom, an expansive auditorium space, to find my 15 students huddled on the front row of the auditorium landing together. One asked,
"Have you heard?"
"Heard what?" I knew it was likely coming any day, but I prayed, genuinely prayed, that somehow it wouldn't.
House Bill 121, a school employee is not required to use pronouns for any person differing from the pronouns reflecting the sex indicated on the person's birth certificate if doing so violates the employee's sincerely held religious beliefs.
House Bill 122 prohibits a public school teacher from incorporating into classroom instruction or during any extracurricular activity topics of sexual orientation or gender identity, or from discussing his or her personal sexual orientation or gender identity.
House Bill 608. A public school shall designate each restroom for the exclusive use of either female or male, and no individual shall enter that restroom unless he or she is a member of that biological sex as clinically verified at birth. Note, gender identity is not a substitute for sex.
They were filed today.
Silence. A prolonged silence. Clearly they'd been talking or not, I couldn't tell. I kneeled next to them. I couldn't find the right thing to say. I just sat and tried to breathe, and then reminded them to breathe. So there we sat, 15 people on a burgundy carpet just staring at each other at an empty stage. "I'm sorry," was all I could muster up to say. I think that they heard it, that they knew it, that they felt it, knew I meant it. But at this time, there was nothing to be done but just listen to what they had to say. Listen to what they had to say.
At my old school, anything queer was a taboo subject. I remember there were 6 of us, including myself. We had each other, but we all felt so very alone. We couldn't be our genuine selves in the company of our peers without the fear of becoming the butt of a joke. Sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if it were all different. I wonder what it would have been like to grow up at a school where we didn't have to figure it out all on our own. Would I have accepted myself earlier? Would I have been happy? I think about what it would have felt like to be accepted and acknowledged by my peers. Maybe my connections would have felt more genuine. Maybe I wouldn't have felt constantly judged. Maybe that would have only taken conversation. Honestly, I think about what it would be like to not have the weight of 144 legislators on my shoulders. Would I be so scared for those I'm leaving behind come fall semester? Would I be taking my anxiety meds so frequently? Likely not. Would it all feel a bit more okay? Probably. So I ask you, if this is really about the well-being of the children of the state, how is this going to help you achieve your goal?
What do you think will be the genuine outcome of these bills? Do you think it would help keep kids safer?
Do you fully understand the impact these bills would have on people?
Do you know a trans person? Have you talked to a trans person? Have you heard queer youth talk about how these bills could be extremely, extremely harmful to them? Have you listened to the doctors who say that gender-affirming care is a life-saving treatment?
Have you ever seen real queer joy? Do you have these debates in good faith?
None of the books I read as a child, or movies or TV shows I watched, had anything about queer or trans people in them. But somehow I still turned out queer. Why didn't that have a big enough impact on me?
What do you say to the little kid who prays to the same God you do when they ask God how much longer should they are allowed to be themselves? What do you do if God doesn't have an answer?
What about queer and trans youth scares you so much?
What does 2050 look like to you, and shall we be absent?
How is this isolation good for the kids? I can tell you firsthand how crippling that isolation is. I can tell you how much it hurts to feel that ice in your veins, how much pain it brings to hate the thoughts you can't control. Sometimes I wonder what it would have been like if I were completely alone. Would I have followed through with those plans? Would I still be here? Or would I fall like the rest? What I'd really like to know is, why are you so obsessed with control?
Control. I've always craved control, but at 17, I've learned firsthand what it's like to have none. I can't control my identity. I can't control what happens to those I love. I can't control who lives and who dies. My best friend Belle taught me the power of my queer identity. At only 15, he marched to this very building in protest against bills similar to HB 121, HB 122, and HB 608. The following year, we spoke at walkouts together, united in our fight against another inhumane wave of legislation. Yet this year, I find myself fighting alone. I'm fighting alone because life unfolds in ways we cannot control. I am barely living in this world where Belle only exists within me, and I couldn't survive in one that criminalizes everything that makes me, Belle, and every other queer child beautiful, which is exactly what these bills will do. Belle never got the chance to grow old, but other queer kids could. Please fight for us. Choose empathy. We're all beautifully human, and everything around us is transitory, and there's so much beyond our control. Transitory was one of Belle's favorite words. Please don't waste time trying to control aspects of our identities that not even we can control. Love us for our humanity. I can't bear to lose another friend.
Dear God, last week at recess, I hung out with my group of friends, but a new girl hung out with us too. I couldn't stop looking at her. As the sunlight hit her face and she laughed, I wanted to kiss her, like how I wanted to kiss Harry Potter in the last movie. I know. I've read the Bible. I know what it says. That's why I'm praying, because I can't get her off of my mind. And every time I see her, I want her to want to kiss me too. Dear God,
I find God in the arms of another.
maybe I wasn't praying hard enough. Maybe I needed to pray more than once.
I praise the divine every time I tell you that I love you.
I'm here again, asking you, begging.
Do you feel his love through me? I pour in what I can in hopes of ascending closer to him.
Please get her out of my head and find a cure for the sickness I have.
I say my daily prayers,
Dear God,
mouthing words of love onto your skin.
last night, Mom told me something spectacular. She told me girls could marry other girls.
I push you closer to him as you push closer to me.
The same mom who teaches Sunday school. The same mom whose father-in-law is a pastor.
I bow my head in reverent prayer and prostrate myself before him as I hold your hand.
And then she said something even more spectacular. She said God still loves me.
You make me more divine.
I can want to kiss the new girl and still make it into heaven.
I remember that the light felt especially yellow that day. I think it was something about those painted cinder block walls in the early morning. It was the first day of school, first day of my sophomore year, and I was walking into my new history classroom. I remember feeling so self-conscious. Like, I thought that my backpack was way too bright, and that I had to sit in this desk that was too big, and it was in the front and center of the room, which I just hated. So I paused for a minute before I sat down, looked around the room, and on the back wall, there was a poster with pink triangles on it. I had learned not too long before from a friend, maybe, or from a novel, or this elderly woman at my church. I'd learned what those pink triangles meant, so I knew that part already. But it didn't really feel like I knew it, because I hadn't learned it from a textbook, or a lecture, or a PowerPoint. I learned it from a friend, or a novel, or an elderly woman at my church. And those didn't feel like places that I could learn history in. But here was a history classroom. And here was that poster. It was real. It was really hanging there on the wall. And this knowledge that I had found folded up, like this snippet of my history that felt like it had seeped in through my pores, something that I didn't trust entirely, it was true. In 1979, there really was a March on Washington for lesbian and gay rights. And they really made a poster. And then someone at the Gilder Lehrman Institute of American History actually printed that poster. Like it was history, like it was real. And they sent it out to high school teachers like it was normal, like it was just as concrete as the 1950s campaign button that was hanging next to it. That was the first time I saw proof that the word lesbian could fit in a history classroom. It was hard for me to believe for a long time, and honestly, sometimes it still is, that this thing that I'm thinking about all the time has a history. That it's real, that there's evidence of it, it's changed things, it's had an impact. But here was proof that my history teacher believed that it mattered. He knew that it was history. He knew about something that happened in 1979, and he had chosen to hang that poster up on the wall and teach about it, like it was real. That made me feel real. And so I sat down, and I stopped worrying about Mike's backpack being too bright for a minute, and instead, I just kept looking at that poster and feeling warm in my chest, and in my cheeks, and in my fingertips.
We have lived our lives and found happiness for millennia. Centuries before that mistranslated holy book, we've told stories of our love, our heartache, our heroism. Gilgamesh, Achilles, Hyacinthus. We are not some recent trend that will go away within a decade.
Ancient texts like the Kama Sutra included fluidity of sexuality and gender. With the arrival of British colonizers in the 19th century, new laws were imposed that criminalized same-sex relationships and alternative gender expression.
Joan of Arc adamantly refused to wear women's clothing or to style her hair in the female-appropriate style, a blasphemous offense at the time. She reportedly said, "As for women's clothing, I shall not put it on until it please God."
The novel Frankenstein is a queer allegory written by Mary Shelley, a polyamorous bisexual.
In 1914, E.M. Forster wrote a novel about a gay man with a happy ending. It is dedicated to a happier year.
Mademoiselle Maupin was a bisexual icon and both famous opera singer and kick-ass fencer. She lived with an unabashed freedom and donned no masks other than for her roles in the opera.
Marsha P. Johnson, a well-known fixture among the drag queens and trans women on Christopher Street. She was present in 1969 when the police raided the Stonewall Inn, proclaiming, "I got my civil rights," and throwing a shot glass at a mirror. The shot glass heard around the world is believed by some to be the inciting action of the riots.
Pepper LaBeija was an American drag queen and fashion designer known as the last queen of the Harlem drag balls. As the mother of the House of LaBeija, she emphasized the importance of supporting young gay and trans folks arriving on the scene after being ostracized from their families.
On October 11, 1992, actress Dave Robinson dumped the ashes of his partner, Warren Krause, on the grounds of the White House in protest of President George W. Bush's inaction in fighting AIDS.
In 1946, a trans man named Reed Erickson graduated from LSU. 20 years later, he made a foundation that funded research in gender-affirming healthcare from its headquarters here in Baton Rouge. Gender-affirming care in Louisiana is quite literally older than our current state constitution. Trans identities are not new.